burning hip. Let's go to the kennel, honey, and get one of those cute little moth pups. They flap their little wings and fly around a light globe, and you can keep them in the closet and feed them socks. 6 months in the mirror, burning hip. Honey, let's go out naked tonight with our moth puppy. Don't forget the socks and the light bulbs. Make sure it's not too warm. You don't want to burn his little wings. The lights are soft, streets soft, skies soft, the mirror's soft, the smell of burnt powder. The moth flies through the mirror. Powder falls lightly around, 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 and around the sun.
Now, next up, for a change of pace, we have a reminiscence from the legendary Giorgio Gomelsky, who should need no introduction, but I will tell you through his credits. He was the first manager of the Rolling Stones, yes, when he was operating the Crawdaddy Club in Richmond, England. He then went on to become the manager and producer of the Yardbirds. He was the driving force behind Marmalade Records, who had a great roster including Blossom Toes, Julie Driscoll, some fantastic records. Anyway, Giorgio was a fixture in New York for years in the underground music scene, and but he had up close and personal dealings with both Frank Zappa and Captain Beefheart, so I'll let him say a few well-chosen words for you now. Giorgio Gomelsky.
People learn about the 10 commandments for guitarists that Captain Beefheart wrote? No? The last one is that guitarists should wear a hat. Because a hat is like a roof over a house. It keeps the heat in. I just realized. Okay, look at it. It's the 10th commandment. Being a fixture in New York Underground, you know. That's not such a pleasant activity. Matter of fact, I came to New York for a week, and I stayed, come May this year, 30 years. And they say you can fall in love with the city like a woman. You don't know what hits you. Chemistry, they call it, right? Perhaps the shape of her ankle. Or the look in her eye. When I came to New York, we had these lawyers' meetings and they kept on putting it off like they always do. And after 3 months I had worn my Dutch clogs down to nothing. I just walked up and down the streets, left and right, east and west, north and south. And I said to myself, you know what, this is not that place. Everybody has an accent. Because in England, of course, when I showed up there in 1955 with my accent, I didn't even speak English. But as I spent so many years there, I was defined as somebody from outside Great Britain, Ireland. Somebody from across the channel, somebody from a country where they eat frogs. And I was called a frog. I was pretty proud to be a frog. But it was hard to be a fixture then in London, like it is hard to be in a fixture here, so to speak, in the underground for so long. You know. When I'm talking about underground, it's kind of interesting. A bunch of sociologists have been making studies recently of what happens in the cultural evolution of our civilization. And most of them feel that culture is something from the ground up, from the bottom up, like Obama's campaign, from the bottom up, as opposed to from the top down, like, you know, whose campaign? And I like that idea because, you know, I've always been a wanderer and a bit of a vagabond, and I've kind of walked up and down the streets and things and, you know, villages and towns and on boats and whatever. And I'm always very proud of being in those places because that's where I thought life was, you know, not so much in the castles and in the presidential palaces which I visited too. But I thought something that in the end benefits our civilization has to start at the bottom, with nothing, with just the idea. And so, yeah, who's been having any good ideas in the last 2,000 years? Because it seems to me that we still haven't solved any major problems, really. And then I thought of the artist. The artist who is attracted to this activity will figure out what to put out in order to shock everybody else into realizing they have to decide which side of the fence they're on. Right? You follow my argument here? Yeah. And the ones that do most of that work are the ones that during their lifetime are not recognized, or rarely. Are the ones that during their lifetime don't make any money, or are not sort of rich, you know, with few exceptions. And are the ones that are inhabited by a desire to follow or to discover a different road from the one that everybody else is traveling on. Don was one of those people. To this day, even if you listen to his music 30 years later or 40 years later, you wonder, but where did he get that idea from? How did he do that? And he says, of course, the major thing that anybody should do is listen to birds, because the birds know everything about sound and distance and reason. That's also part of his 10 Commandments for guitarists, by the way. That's the first one. And now I gave you the last and the first. Well, I want to take you back some 40 years, exactly. It's actually 40 years. This time flies. We were, you know, every night in London in those days, it was swinging in London, we would end up at the Speakeasy Club, which was like the musician kind of place. After midnight open, we'd be able to drink from 3 and then kind of hang out for another hour, and then we would go to somebody's house and listen to some records and one thing or another. And one night it was in London, I think it was December of 67 or 68, 67, or that month. And speaking. And I was having a conversation with a fellow who, in my opinion, is one of the most important people in the London music scene, the original London music scene, a man called Peter Meaden. Have you, any of you ever heard of him? Yes? No? Yes, you have. Well, Peter was the one that kind of discovered the Who, and he brought in Andrew Luke Oldham into the music scene, and generally kind of promoted stuff that nobody else was listening to or thought that was interesting, or commercial, in other words. But among these people, he had very good taste, tremendous taste. And there were always people that, like, a few years later, everybody else talked about. So he's there, and he's saying, Peter had very English, extremely English. He'd gone to kind of those colleges that are for rich people, although Andrew Oldham went there too, that's how they met. I can't remember what it was called, some college. And he would proliferate about it, he would proselytize about this, he would tell everybody. Once he discovered something he liked, the next day half of London knew about it. And that night, at the Speakeasy, we were like the last customers. We were talking, he was talking to me about captain something or other.